All right, hey guys, this is another interview. We have Aspect. Um, yeah, I guess if you want to introduce yourself a bit, something, yeah.
Yeah. Hey guys, my name's Bram. I go by Aspect. I produce EDM music, kind of all over the place in that genre, I guess. Kind of sticking primarily with like melodic dubstep, future bass, and sometimes some house. I dabble around with some house, and then kind of some chiller vibes as well. Um, I've been producing for about 2.5 years, almost three. Um, I'm also a singer, and I want to get into that a little more because I've been singing for like 15 years, but I don't sing on any of my tracks. So watch
Yeah,
out for that. Hopefully that comes soon.
I was looking through your Spotify profile and it was just like Graham has been like a vocalist since like age 3, and I'm just like, I didn't know people could sing at that age. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Literally before I could speak, I was singing. My parents have it on video. It's like I literally couldn't say words, and I was singing before I could speak.
yeah, was that something you just like kind of picked up on your own, or is your family like, are there musicians in the family, or?
Yeah, my dad's very musical, and he runs a studio full time as his job,
Oh shit, okay.
and he's always been like in bands and stuff like that. So very musical guy. I think just kind of growing up around that kind of led me to also be musical in that way.
That's fair. So you mentioned like you're into like future bass house. I think you also said dubstep. So like
Yeah,
for most like I guess EDM artists, like when you're getting started or like starting to make music, are like the genres that you like, do you like actively say I want to make music in future bass, or like, or do you like play around with your sound and then you later say okay, this sounds like this category?
yeah. For me, when I first started, I definitely like actively chose to move in the future bass melodic dubstep direction with my EDM production. Because I was super inspired by like Illenium, Nurko, Said the Sky, like Seven Lions, like those guys, like super inspired me. So I was like, oh, okay, I gotta work kind of more, I want to work more in this direction, try to kind of capture that sound.
Yeah.
Um, and that definitely has guided my process, especially like when I first started. I think more recently I've been branching out into like other exciting avenues of music. I've been really trying to do more because I feel like every time I would make a drop, I would like always do super saw chords, with these big super saw drops. And I was like, I wanted to try something different more recently. So I've been trying more like, alternative drop methods and like different ways of kind of expressing that same emotion or the same idea. But yeah, definitely originally was like, I'm trying to do future bass or melodic dubstep. I mean, and when I first started, I had no idea what that was. Like I had no idea what future bass or melodic dubstep was. I
Yeah.
just figured I liked Illenium's music, and I was like, all right, what is that? Like, what is that? Like, so yeah, it was a lot of learning because I came into it like I had no experience in music production. I had limited to no experience in EDM at all. I didn't really understand it, but I was just excited about it.
How did you learn? Like, you said you didn't
Dude,
have much experience.
100% self-taught, man.
Yeah. No
Mm.
courses. Like, is that stuff something you even looked into, or?
No, I have looked into getting private lessons from Nurko, um, because I think there are just some techniques that he does really well that I would love to like just hear from him how he does it.
Yeah.
Um, but he doesn't. He sometimes offers those, but he doesn't right now. So I haven't done any of that. But everything else is just all self-taught through just practice and failure, bro. Like I like I mean like I literally like I don't know. Like I've made probably like close to 90 songs at this point,
There's no
and
way.
yeah, like literally close to that amount, and just like have not done anything with like half of them, or like, well, honestly like 90% of them I haven't done anything with because it was just all part of the repetitive process. Like the best way to learn how to produce is to do every step from start to finish. So like start, produce, mix, master, like try it yourself, just do it all the way through. And like even if it sounds bad or just sucks, like try to fix it, like try these different ways of fixing it. And but like after you worked on it for like a week, just move on to the next project, like try something new, try something different. And that for me was like really crazy in my growth, like in terms of my mixing especially. Like it just got leaps and bounds better when I was just trying new things and failing repeatedly, but you know, just kept going at it from start to finish. Like the reiterative process was like really helpful for me.
So were you making these songs with like the goal of like releasing, or making these songs to like for the purpose of just like getting better? Like
Yeah. So for me, it really isn't like I'm not doing music as like a career or anything. Like for me, it's just like it's a really great creative space and a really great like creative release, which I really enjoy. Um, so for me, it was always about like making music that people liked, you know, that I like first of all. Like for me, it's like I like making music, so I want to like it. But
yeah,
it's like if I like it, I also hope that other people like it. So I wanted like to release music just so like people could see what I do, because I mean I spend an egregious amount of time doing music and like being in Ableton and everything, and so it's like, you know, I want people to be able to see, you know, the product of what I put all this time and effort into, and I want them to be like, oh wow, like that sounds cool, like that's a cool thing you've done here. So for me, that was definitely one of the you know, one of the main things I wanted to do was like really like just share what I like and what I have been doing with my time, because you know it is a time investment.
also, I don't know if you've heard like there. Obviously, I'm sure you have like Elefante.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was listening to a podcast with him, and he was talking about how like he had to like continuously make music. How long does it take for you to like make a song usually?
Dude, I've gotten really fast at it. Like a little scary fast. And in a way that like makes me wonder if I'm not being creative enough because I'm doing it too fast. Uh, my time to make a song, like like from scratch to finish, if it's a remix, at least for a remix. So if I have a vocal, my time to make a song from scratch to finish is about 2 days. Um, and that's like 2 days of like probably like 8 or 9 hours a day. So probably less than 20 hours to make a song from scratch to finish.
Gotcha.
If I have a vocal already. If I don't have a vocal, that makes it a lot harder. Um, just because I get really inspired by the vocal track and I like producing around a vocal track rather than just producing and then adding a vocal track later. I just feel like it never really fits as well.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I'm getting pretty fast at it at this point. Um, but dude, the thing is, so you mentioned like Euphoria, you know, was my first one I released, and that was like February of 2020, and then Let Go, and then Wander, and like it's so funny to me that you say like all high quality, because like for me, I don't think Euphoria is very high quality. I think Euphoria is like, ugh, it's kind
Really?
of bad.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it just because I hear all the imperfections in it, like where things I was like, oh, I would definitely change that now, and that was like very, you know, pretty early in my production career to release that one, and then like Let Go, I hear all these problems with Let Go that I would fix now. And then I'm like, ah, damn, I wish I could go back and fix it. And then Wander is definitely probably one of the better production quality ones out there for me, at least. But I still have things that I would change or fix, like I would make the super saws more bright or whatever in the drop. Like we so funny story about Wander actually. Illenium did a feedback stream on Twitch, and he gave us feedback on Wander. Um, and he was like, it was the first song of the stream. So me and my buddy Harrison, who made the track with me, we were like, "Yo, this is crazy." This
Yeah.
is wild. But his comment was like, "Add brightness to the super saws in the drop," and I now I can't listen to it without being like, "Ah, oh, damn, he's right." Like, So maybe I'm just too self-critical on my own things, but I feel like every time I make a new song, it like it's always better. That's always the problem. It's like it's better than the one you made before, which is a
Yeah.
good thing, but it's also so frustrating because then you listen to the stuff you made before and you're like, I would fix that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Dude, I think it's also funny because like I talking to producers or like EDM artists, it's like they're I feel like you guys are more critical of like the quality like of like the music, and I feel like that is a huge contrast to like the average listener, like someone like me who doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have that background. Cause like
Mm-hmm.
I'll like talk to someone and be like, oh, I love this song, this song, and this song. They're like, no, those are my shittiest songs, because to them it's like maybe like as you're talking like technical stuff, like I guess brightness of like drops and stuff like that. Like for them, like that's what they're thinking about. But I'm just thinking about the melody. Like, does this sound
Yeah.
in general to me, right? And like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't go too deep into like the tiny details, right? So I think that's just pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's actually kind of like a profound thing that I've noticed when you're talking to a lot of producers or people that like are actually like making music a lot. Once you start making music, you can't listen to music in the same way you did before. Like like when you start like producing, you're like, oh, what are they doing here to make me feel this way? What elements are included here? Where's the panning? Like, how are they getting that sound? Like, what is that sound? Like, how are they mixing that so that it's not muddy? Like, how are those vocals sitting? Like that you like think about things like that. Like how upfront is that? How reverb is that? How are they making it not muddy if it's all the way in the back of the mix? Like
Yeah.
and I just can't listen to music anymore without at least at one point thinking about like how they're doing that and just like enjoying it for what it is. Like dude, I was literally listening like a Dan and Shay song the other day, like just not EDM at all, and I was like, oh man, like I love that they layered the snap with the snare. Like it's like very nice.
Yeah.
It's like I would never have thought that when before I started producing, but now that's like all I can think about when I hear a song. So I think it's really funny. It does change the way that you like kind of consume music in a lot of ways.
Do you enjoy it the same though, or
Oh, dude, I think I enjoy music more than most people because I feel like I can appreciate a lot of the elements that are in there. Like dude, like listening to like any song. I mean, Elenium is just a ridiculous producer. Nurko is ridiculous. Seven Lines is ridiculous. Like part of the reason I love those guys' music so much is because everything's so well done and just intricate. Like not only are like for Lenny and the melodies just incredible, but like it's the way all these elements sit together. Like the slight subtle panning of like hi-hats, like the reversing of hi-hats, like that you wouldn't even think you're hearing, but it's there and it adds so much to a track. And
yeah,
it's like yeah, I'd say I love the way I consume music just because it's also a learning experience every time I listen to a song now. It's not just like I'm enjoying it for fun.
yeah,
Like it's like, oh, I can learn from this track every time I'm listening. Like in my car, like if I'm listening to something, I'd be like, oh, damn, like I love how that sits like properly. Maybe I can try that in mine. And that was one. I mean, that's how I learned a lot of like my mixing stuff. Is like I was like, oh, I'm putting way too much bass, like way too much sub into my songs, like because I wanted it to like bang in a car and like be like nice and thick, but it just kind of muddied up everything. It made everything kind of sound like ooh, when I had too much sub in there. So I was like, oh, I was like listening to some of these other guys. I was like, how are they getting it to sound big without all that sub? And kind of adjusted my own songs in that way.
got you, got you. And like you obviously have like a lot of admiration for like people like Nurko, Millennium. I mean, honestly, I can see from my limited knowledge, I can see like the similarities in the style
Mhm.
of like
Yeah,
Millennium stuff and like especially Wander. Like,
yeah.
um, yeah, I can see the similarities. My question is like, how are you able to like reach out to like Nurko, and like how is it easier than you think to like reach out to like these big artists in the same like music category?
No, I'd say I'd say it's not easy. I'd say Nurko is active in Facebook groups. So there's like a Nurko fan group that you can join, and he's fairly active in that.
Yeah.
And he also responds sometimes to Instagram DMs because Nurko's like he's big. Like I think he's a big artist, but like he's not like crazy big where he can't respond to people at this point. You know what I mean? I hope he stays that way because I really appreciate it. But
Yeah.
like yeah, like said the sky at Lenny and they won't respond to you. But Narco probably would.
Got
Um,
you. Okay.
so you gotta find the more big artists that are a little more low key, and they might respond to you with
Yeah.
some stuff.
Yeah. No, I for fun, I just joined like a Millennium Discord. Uh
Yo, yeah, the millennial one. I'm in that one
yeah.
too.
I obviously I don't like message, but it was just interesting. Everyone's really like passionate about what they're doing and stuff.
Dude, everyone's so passionate about music. It's always so crazy because you think like you're kind of like in your little bubble, and
Yeah.
you think like, oh, like no one else is really doing music, and then you get into one of these discords or something, and there's just like thousands of music producers that are
Yeah.
all just like so talented and
Yeah.
so passionate about it. You're just like, damn, like how do I not know these people? Like how are they not famous?
Yeah.
Like it's so crazy.
Yeah. I guess like that's another question. Like, have you ever considered like marketing? Because I'm sure like everyone's like good in a certain way, right? And like question is why are some people successful and some people like I guess traditionally successful. Um,
Mm.
like I guess like wait, what is your goal with music? I never asked that either.
Yeah. My goal is literally just to make music that people like obviously it's very nice to like have a lot of streams on songs, but like for me, like I would rather just like I the thing that makes me the most happy is when I release a song and some of my friends listen to it and they text me and they're like, dude, that was awesome. I added that to my playlist. Like
Yeah,
that is what's like I don't really care if it's like, people that I don't know or anything like that are like, oh, that was cool and I'm adding it to a playlist. Like when someone like texts me, like one of my friends or something texts me and is like, yo, that was a really cool song. I really like it. And I'm just adding that to one of my playlists just to listen to, like that to me like really is what I want out of it. You know what I mean? Like I want people to be like, oh yeah, that was cool, like I like that. And like so for me, I don't need like a crazy amount of streams or anything like that, because again, like the streams are where it's like you make the money and stuff like that, but I'm not in it for the money. I'm doing this for fun. So
yeah,
I and I think a part of that is like kind of an advantage for me because then like I'm not here to like constantly push my music in your face. I'm here to just like let you know when I have when I release something. If you want to listen to it, go ahead. If you don't, oh well. But it's not like my livelihood depends on this. It's like it's just for me having a creative space and sharing work that I've done. So yeah, my goal with music is definitely just to keep it as a fun, creative release, and yeah, just not to put too much pressure on myself.
do you think it's possible to make authentic music and also try to make a living out of it, or does like the money?
Yeah, I definitely think it is. I'd say more so now than probably used to be,
Okay.
because now you have more like indie artists that are popping off. So I'd say it's more so now possible than it would have been in the past. But yeah, no, definitely.
Cool. Okay. That's good. And one thing I wanted to go back to was you're talking about how like you're able to make a song in like 2 days, right?
Mm.
How big is like so? Do you rely a lot on like splice packs and stuff? Like, what's like your relationship with like those like packs and stuff?
Yeah. So I typically don't. Um, I don't like using samples for melodic elements of my song. Um, I recently did get in a little more into Splice because they have some really cool like one shots and stuff like that
Yeah.
that I like using. So like a lot of my drums, like all my like drums and percussions will pretty much be Splice samples that I like programming my own stuff. So like I take one shots. I don't do like loops as much. And then so I'll program all my own stuff. But then like I found a vocal recently on Splice that I really like a little phrase. So I made a song out of that. Um, and then, but like for like melodics, like synths, pianos, and other instruments, I'm not really using Splice. The only time I may use Splice, and I haven't really had a whole lot of success with it, is like guitar, because like I am like not a really good guitar player. I wish I was, but I'm not. So like sometimes finding like cool little guitar, chord progressions or something like that, can kind of inspire me with a song. But um, yeah, for the most part, I like to make my own sounds, rather than use samples or like just full like drop loops. Like I know like Splice will have like those full like full vocoder loops or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
And I try to stay away from those because I feel like because my thing whenever I look at Splice, I'm like everyone has access to this. So like at the end of the day, like if I posted something like this, like it wouldn't be like really original. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't be like authentic in that sense because like anyone could just take that and put it on a project. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So if I do throw something on a project, I like to like mess with it at least a little bit to try and make it more my own.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. Like, I was like on Splice, and have you heard of the song like "Drip Too Hard" by Lil Baby? It's like it's rap.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
Dude, that song, literally the entire like foundation of it is a pat is like a not a pat, it's like a loop on Splice, and it was
Do you
like
know the name of it?
I can look it up. I'll send it over. But
Okay.
yeah, it was really funny. Yeah, and you said program. Like, how what do you mean by program your sound? Like,
Well, yeah. So I can. Do you want to just? I have a project pulled up. If you want to hop
yeah, dude,
in.
that'd be super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Can you allow me to screen share?
Yeah, I just did.
Word. Awesome. I'll do that, and then I'll set up my sound to share. Share sound, and then I'm gonna run it. Oh, whoops. Cool. So this is. Let me know if you can hear once I start playing.
Okay.
Um, but this is a project that I made in like 2 days.
Yeah.
And this is based off of a Splice vocal. So it's this is the vocal. Here, let me turn this all off. This was the vocal. Let me know if you can hear it.
Deep, sweet dreams, sing me to sleep.
So that's the vocal as it was. And then, I messed with it a little bit.
Deep, sweet dreams,
Kind of mess with it a little more, make it a little more haunting. But that little vocal like inspired this whole track. And so what I mean by programming my own sounds is that sometimes I use presets, but like for this one, I don't think this is a preset. Yeah, this is just white noise. But there's like, okay, so for example, probably this is a better one. Like this is a sound that I programmed in Serum. So Serum is a synth, and I went in and made these. I used their wavetables to like make this sound, and then I like put a bunch of effects on it and everything. I might have just messed with that, but I think I had that distortion on. And like that can like then you can make some really cool sounds out of that. Like that sound is probably going to sound a little harsh right now, but in context, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Kind of a gross sound, but in context with everything, it makes a lot more sense.
I can already feel the Millennium coming in, dude. Like,
Dude, it's this track has like a lot of like it's kind of a weird vibe. But like so when I say like I also like taking samples and making them my own. So I took parts of that little vocal sample that I showed you here earlier and made like my own vocal chops out of it. So like this is what that sounds like.
Sweet dream. Sweet dream.
So made that vocal chop out of like the splice sample. So in that way, you know, I am using splice samples, but I'm kind of making them my own.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so I was kind of talking earlier about how I'm trying to experiment with like different drops, like different styles. So this first drop here was like me trying to do something different than just like big supersaw chords, and then the last one is more like bigger supersaw chords. But I'll just give you a little look at what that looks like. That was like a different style of drop, and then the last one here is more like, I guess, more my style. I mean, this whole song is a little different because it's kind of darker and than anything I would normally do, but yeah, so it's like a little different. But yeah, this one was a lot of fun to work with because it's kind of all over the place. But like in terms of, you know, making your own sounds and stuff like that, like I took a little sample that I from a Hex Cougar splice pack that I like, and I completely messed with it. So this is what it sounds like. And that was like a little one shot. So that original sound is this essentially. That's like that original sound. That I even on this one I even distorted it and reverbed it out a little more. But super nice sound. And I went in and like obviously made a melody out of it and pitched and reversed some stuff. And then this is like literally just a piano. Which is just like super distorted and kind of gross sounding, but you know, with everything, it kind of sounds really nice and kind of adds to that like darker vibe. But yeah, that's more what I meant when I mean like programming stuff.
No. Dude, I think it's wild that this was based off of that one vocal.
Yeah, dude. Literally, I literally heard this one little phrase here. Yeah. I was like, oh, this thing is dark and like evil. And I want to make something dark and evil. So like I like literally made this, and then I went in and like made the chords essentially, which I did like right here.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's super dark and brooding and kind of evil sounding. Yeah. And so then I was like, okay, let me find some like atmospheres and stuff that would make it really kind of fit in that vein. So then obviously like this Hex Cougar atmosphere, which kind of reverbed out and then just messed with it a little bit. It's just really nice to add that kind of texture, that dark vocal, and then just reverbing the crap out of that vocal, making it sound really like haunting and stuff. It just sounds really
sweet dreams.
it's like so dark and evil, bro. It's
Yeah.
different. It's different. But like, so for example, like this was a vocal drone. Um, this was like a part of the vocal that I took it out, took a little syllable of the vocal out, frozen flattened it in a reverb. Um, so like super long, just one vowel sound of that vocal. And let me see, maybe if I just group this, I can show you. Um, and then I put that in here, and then I processed it even more. So this is kind of that like vocal dark ambience that you're hearing during the drop. So this is like what it sounds like with. That's what it sounds like without anything, and then with everything, kind of distorted, compressed, some EQing on it. But that little sound that you're hearing right here is like such a key part to why this drop has that like vocal ambience to it. That and this white noise layer I added down here, like that like carries like the upper parts of this drop to give it that kind of like dark brooding sound. Like here, if listen for those elements of the song when I play it this time.
Yeah.
Did you hear it more this time now that you're like kind of listening for it?
Dude, I was trying hard to analyze it. I couldn't distinguish sounds, bro. It's tough, man.
It's hard, yeah, but like when you key in on a sound like that, you can like be like, oh, that's what's going on there. Like, I mean, this drop has a few things happening, so I understand
Yeah.
it's a little harder, but it's like that. It's like those small little subtle
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
details that are adding so much. Oh, and this one's actually kind of cool too. There's like a inharmonic, essentially like white noise that I then compressed and EQ'd. But it sounds really nice with everything. Kind of adds that kind of screamy sound to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hop out of this project
Yeah.
as
No.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So that's kind of like that's what I mean by like actually like making the sounds yourself and kind of using Splice as a base for a lot of it. But that's a project I made in like 2 days.
Yeah.
And I think that's like how my workflow is getting now.
Yeah. So I know like a lot of like artists use plugins and stuff like that. So like,
Yeah.
is that like is that super essential? Like especially paid ones, especially like I guess my question is more like for people who can't afford like certain plugins. Like is that a
Yeah.
big like issue for like equality for like different artists or?
Yeah. That's a great question. So part of the reason I used to produce in Logic, so I started off in Logic. And part of the reason I switched to Ableton, first of all, most EDM producers produce in Ableton
Yeah.
because of the workflow. It's just really good. But part of the reason I switched to Ableton was because I didn't have a whole lot of money starting off to, throw on expensive plugins. Because these things are pretty freaking expensive. Like Serum is like $200. Like that's a synth, it's like a little
Yeah.
synth in your computer. It's like $200. So, when you get all the other stuff in there as well, it adds up pretty expensive. And Ableton by itself is pretty expensive. Like I got a student discount, so it was like $450 for the suite version. So it's still like mad expensive if you're trying
Yeah.
to get into it. But the reason I bought Ableton because I didn't want to put all that money into plugins. So I bought Ableton because Ableton has really, really good stock plugins. So when I use like a lot of Ableton stock, like the saturator, the EQ, the compressor, um, the reverb, sometimes the delay, like all that stuff that just comes stock with Ableton, I still use all the time, even though I have other plugins that also could do that. I just like the way like Ableton's kind of simplistic. It's like a more simple version of it, which I really like. Um, so yeah, it's tough because you know, if you want to get some things, there's a lot of things that will really beef up your production and make it sound more professional.
Yeah.
Um, quickly with plugins, like it's more about a workflow thing because almost everything Ableton stock has. I think the only thing Ableton stock doesn't have is like a pitch altering thing for like vocals, like a Melodyne or like an autotune type deal. Like I think Logic has like flex pitch, but I don't think Ableton has anything like that. So that's kind of annoying. Like you probably have to buy, you know, some sort of vocal altering thing for that.
Yeah.
But everything else on Ableton is really, really good. Like the stock is really good. And that was part of the reason I bought it. Since then I've now, you know, purchased a lot more things that I use on a regular basis, just because they really help make your sound that much more professional.
And you're at that
And
stage, I feel.
yeah, and like I think I do this enough to make the investment worth it. Like this is like literally like what I do most of the day. So like I do school in this, and that's pretty much
Yeah.
about it. Um, so like for me, I think it was worth it. You know, I've made a little bit of money out of doing some music, so I just kind of just reinvested it back into it. So um, but like for people like getting started, you know, there is definitely going to be a little bit of a price barrier when you first get started. Um, but if you were to get started, like if someone was like, I want to do music and I want to get started tomorrow, like what should I do? I would be like, well, be ready to part ways with like, you know, about $500 or something like that. And I'd say just buy Ableton, like literally just buy Ableton Suite, because then you get all the Max for Live stuff, all the stock instruments, and the audio effects. And Ableton has some really good instruments that I still don't really know how to use, like Operator, Wavetable. Those are all like crazy good instruments in Ableton, like FM synthesis. You can do that kind of stuff in there too. You don't need like Serum or something like that. But um, yeah, like the main thing is, and like this is also something that I fell into a trap when I first started producing. I thought I needed plugins to sound good. Plugins are they're the same thing, right? Like so, there's some characteristics of plugins that are lend to a better workflow. There are some ones that just like work really well, which is nice. So like I really am a big fan of the FabFilter stuff. Like they have a lot of capabilities that Ableton stuff doesn't have.
Yeah.
But like it's more about knowing what you're doing rather than whatever the plugin is. Like I could have 4 compressors and have like, you know, 3 of them be plugin ones and have a stock Ableton compressor. But if I don't know what I'm doing with that compressor, like the guy who only has a stock Ableton compressor is going to make better music than me. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's like that is like um like that's more like the important part of it is like, you know, getting an understanding of what everything does rather than like paying for the expensive plugins. Now I say that that's an easy thing. It is not an easy thing to understand what everything does. Like
Yeah.
I don't understand what everything does. And I've been doing this for a while. But like when you have that basic understanding, you like will like you can do like I used to use more plugins than I do now. Like I've kind of gone back to using more stock Ableton stuff and trying out that now that I have a better understanding of what things do. So I wouldn't say it's necessary. It helps. It makes it easier, and it definitely speeds up, you know, the process of professional sound. But I wouldn't say it's necessary. No.
Yeah. Dude, I love how like I was getting some ads like the drip plugin where it shows like this guy
But
like
the Kyle Beats
yeah.
like drip, dude, that thing is like, it's like, you know, it's really not doing anything crazy. It's like
Yeah.
adding reverb, a little bit of saturation. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. It's like showing this guy like press 2 buttons, I think. And
Yeah, yeah. Well,
it's
some
like
people really like that, man. Like some people really like, you know, having a thing where, like in FL Studio, there's a plugin called Sound Goodizer, and it's literally like you know, one knob. You just like give how much of this do I want to use so it sound good. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah.
and like people like that, like the one knob things, because I mean, music is very complicated. So it's very easy to have like 50 knobs on a plugin space and just be completely overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like if I pull up, so my buddy, he's my buddy Harrison, who we produced Wander together. He and I have a Silent license together, and Silent is like so confusing when you first look at it. Like if I pulled this up here and I was like, all right, make like a super saw sound out of that. You'd be like, what? Like, what even
Yeah.
is that?
Yeah. This is why.
Like, yeah, like there's a lot of buttons, and like that's nice because when you know what you're doing, it gives you a lot of control, and it gives you a lot of like, you know, ways to work with it. But like it can be extremely confusing, you know, when you're first opening it up. And like now imagine that every single plugin is like this. But
Yeah.
that's not even like, this has two parts to it. It has an A and a B
Yeah. Yeah.
oscillator. So it's like there's just a lot going on. And so it's like, it's very easy to get overwhelmed. So some people really like just the one knob plugins. So
Yeah. No, I feel that. I mean, I have a couple more questions. I don't know if I feel like I'm taking. If you're good on,
nah, dude,
you're good on time.
I'm totally good on time. Yes, sir.
All right, word. So another thing I wanted to ask was like, are you planning on doing like remixes? Like, is that something you want, a path you want to go down to, like reaching out to artists, like getting some like official remixes kind of done?
Dude, yeah, I mean, that would be ideal. The problem with remixes are, I mean, I would love to remix some songs. Like that was honestly one of the main parts. The only reason I really actually want to be like a big artist is so that I can like remix songs that I want to remix. Like, because you like artists won't let you remix a song unless you're like a big artist, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that's the only reason I would want to be a big artist, is so that I can hit someone up and be like, hey, can I remix this? Like, just because I like this song, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh man, there's a Slander song called Blood on Me. And I just love the vocal on it. And it's like this like aggressive dubstep song. But I would love to change it more like Illenium-esque, you know, big superstar chords. Like the vocal just lends itself so well to it. And I can't find an acapella that's like clean, you know, online. So like for me, I would be like, oh, like I just want to be able to hit up Slander and be like, yo, can I grab that vocal and mess around with it?
Yeah.
But you know, obviously at my level, there's no chance he would ever respond to me or ever give me that vocal. But yeah, so it's like that's the only reason I would love to do that. But I do a lot of remix contests, and I participate in a lot of those. So you know, hopefully one day I'll win one of those. But I mean, that's the thing, dude. Like you realize how many people make music and are like so good and are not famous.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, when you do those things, because like there's always just like I'll listen through some of those submissions and I'm just like, dude, these are all just amazing. And I've never heard of this person, you know, and it's like, I can't imagine the amount of time and effort they put into that stuff. And it's just like, wow, like people are so talented and you just don't even like realize it. And some people like will never know their names, and that's crazy, you know? So, you know, ideally I would win a remix contest at some point and then I'd get an official remix, which would be really nice. But, the chances of that are very slim. Like when you enter, like even like on the Skio remixes, like there's typically at least like 250 other songs, and at least like 60 of them are all professional quality, like good sounding songs. So it's like at that point, it's like, did I hit a bucket that just like this guy really likes the song, you know, because it's pretty subjective at the end of the day. Like
Yeah.
once you meet the certain threshold of like quality mix, you know, quality master, like good sound, then it's just kind of at that point, it's like, which one did I like more, you know? And like, that's tough. Because music is so, you know, subjective to each individual. So, you know, I'm praying I'll win a remix one day, but, as of right now, I'll just keep posting them on SoundCloud.
Yeah. Yeah. I was checking out your SoundCloud thing the other day. You posted a remix recently, right?
Yeah, I posted. So I released a song with Roxanne Fortney yesterday, called Suburban Escape. I did a remix for it. And that's an official remix, so that was fun. But again, Roxanne's like a friend of mine from high school, so it's not even like it's not like a big name or anything, but
Yeah.
it's I mean, it's fun to work on it, and it's fun to like hear her original, like kind of more acoustic guitar based song be something a little more chill and like vibey with like a little more EDM-y influences. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to work on that project. And then also my buddy Lewis Fanny, who is actually, he's doing pretty well for himself. Let me play around with a vocal on Where Did You Go, and let me post that on SoundCloud. So not an official remix, but fun to work on nonetheless. And again, like the more experience I can get with vocals and just working hands-on with stuff, it's been a really fun experience for me, and that I grow out of that. So we'll see.
Where did you find the vocalist for Wander?
So Lewis put me in contact with her. So it's the same one as Where Did You Go?
Okay.
And found her on Sound Better, which is like this like website where you can go find like producers, mixers, mastering engineers, singers, anything you need really to make your music sound good. You can find it on Sound Better. I'm on Sound Better. I do a lot of remixes for clients on there.
Gotcha.
Which is always really fun, because I always love the reaction when they like take the project and then I'm like, oh, and they're like, I don't know, like we'll take the project, whatever. I was like, okay, cool. Like, and then I send them something and they're like, yo, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yo, I'm so happy I did this. And so like, that's always nice. And that's a really rewarding part of working on Sound Better. And it's a really good site. So if anyone's ever making music and needs something like a vocalist or something like that, definitely go check out Sound Better. It's a really good spot for that.
Damn, yeah. I'll plug that in. Yeah. Yeah. That's. Well, I know one thing we were talking about earlier was just like working with others, getting feedback, and for what is your advice for like people who are starting out? Because one common theme I've been talking to like a bunch of artists at this point.
Hmm.
A common feedback is like they say that when they show their songs to people, like the feedback they get is like it's good, like because like
Yeah.
they're not people aren't really super honest because like especially if they're friends and stuff. Like for you, like are the friends like you show your music to did they become your friends because of music or were they friends before, like, and how do you gain that
Yeah.
like trust of like and like honest that that they're gonna give you like honest feedback?
Yeah. That's a great question. So I have a lot. So I have, the buddies that I like actually send my stuff to for feedback, um, are typically they're friends I made through music. So it's like didn't really know them before, but then we found out we both did music, and kind of that way we made friendships. But I also know that they're going to be nice and critical, of my stuff because they want the best for me. Um, and I also typically only send like feedback to like people that I trust their opinions. So like I prefer personally, a lot of labels do like feedback streams, where like you can submit a song, or like Elenium or something like that. Like they can do feedback streams on Twitch, um, and you like submit a song to them and they can look at it and give you feedback. And like I always value that a lot because they're very critical. And they're like for example, I sent this song. I mean, I've changed it a lot since then, but I sent this song to a label feedback stream, and they're like, okay, the mix is kind of muddy. You need to give everything its space. The kick isn't hitting hard enough. Like there's too much sidechain on the vocal. Um, and there's like a lot of really harsh frequencies in there. Like that's like 4 super good critical feedback that I needed, because grant I knew the harshness was there. I hadn't mixed it properly yet, but I like needed to hear that it wasn't just me thinking that, it's like other people are also hearing this. And
Yeah.
like for example, I did a remix that I got some feedback from some studio engineers that I'm friends with, and they were like, yeah man, I really love everything about it, but when you're ducking the vocal to the kick every time, it makes me anxious. And I'm like, okay, I'll change that. Like that's good feedback to have, because like I liked it, but like if it like I got that from 2 different studio engineers, completely independently, both saying that the decking of the vocal to the kick was weird. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to do that then. Like,
Yeah.
because I mean, I liked it, but like, if the general consensus is not that from like two, engineers who I trust their perspectives, then like I should probably change that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like at the end of the day, like I am a little more when it comes to feedback. It's hard because a lot of things are personal preference, right? So like I take a lot of when I do feedback, I prefer mixed feedback versus necessarily production feedback. Um, and I prefer getting mixed feedback versus production feedback because production, like music, is a creative outlet. Like if you wanted to make that sound that way, or you wanted to make it this sound or have this element in there, that's like up to you. Like that's completely your ball game. Now, if you're trying to sound, you're saying you're trying to sound like this song and you have elements in there that are kind of whack, then maybe change that, or like your rhythms are a little off or whatever. And if I know that that's what you're trying to do, then I'll give you that feedback. But like if you're just saying like, hey, like give me some feedback on the song, what do you think? I'll typically stick to like mixing feedback, because I don't know what they want out of production. I don't know unless they tell me like I'm trying to sound like this song or I'm trying to sound like this. I'll kind of just stick to like, oh, like some of these elements are a little muddy, like I lost this element here, maybe you can pan that out. Your snare's a little harsh, things like that. Like maybe your side chain's a little off. Things like that is kind of more where I'd stick to. But when I get feedback, I always go to like either people, well, typically people in my genre, because they're going to know the music that I'm listening to and trying to kind of emulate. And if it's not people in my genre, it's professional studio engineers, because they're actually going to give you positive feedback. Because you're right, like when I show anything to my friends, they're just like, oh, that's cool, like that's good. And I'm like, that's not helpful,
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely kind of stick. And then and that's nice sometimes. Sometimes you just need reassurance that your song is good. But if I'm actually looking for like more critical feedback, definitely like people who have done this for a long time, in your genre, and if not in your genre, engineers or label feedback streams. That's kind of where my go-tos are.
Got you. Dude, I think it's super cool that you have like this fucking network, right? Of like engineers, like other producers, like obviously like you're just like normal friends who like listen to your stuff. I think like yeah, it's just really awesome to see you have like that network where you can like pursue your passion and just like rely on them. But
Yeah, it's been fun, and like I've built it up over the years. Me and Drew Ellis, goes by Drell. Me and him started like the music production club here at
okay.
UNC, which was literally just like, let's just connect people that we know do music to other people that do music. And I guarantee you, like every music person has a music friend. Like I've never met a person that does music completely by themselves. They have other music people that they're friends with.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, well then add them to the group, and like they'll have a music friend, and then they can add someone, and
Yeah.
it just becomes a big group of like people that like interested in music. And like that's a really exciting prospect, and like it's a really cool way to get to know people. Like it's a cool way to like connect.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, speaking on that, like obviously, like you submitted your music to help me with a project I'm working on. I'm super excited to like see you interact with like other passionate producers and EDM artists. I was listening to everyone's music, dude. So much good stuff. I don't know why it's not like on the charts right now. So yeah, I think it's just very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, a lot of like the chart stuff. I feel like the problem for a lot of young people who are independent. First of all, EDM is fairly niche in and of itself,
Yeah.
so your audience is already smaller. But there are so many EDM producers. Like, there's a lot of hip hop producers, there's a lot of EDM producers, and like those guys, it's such a saturated market, right? And most people are small and independent. There's very few people who are like big. Um, so like there's so many people like always like, oh, listen to my music, listen to my music, listen to my music. But what you really need is to already have popularity, because people ride a popularity train. Like that is like a given. Um, like that's just how people work. So it's like if I have, if I release a song, and I have 300 followers on my Instagram account or something,
Yeah.
right? Like that thing is not going to blow up. But if I have 70,000 followers, even if the quality of music is worse, that thing will blow up, just because people will like ride the popularity wave and assume that the quality of my music is better. Right. And this is not to say that people who have a big following are bad. They're probably completely deserving and great musicians. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying, and so the quality is probably great. But what I'm saying is like there's the difference of riding the wave and like having to start a wave. You know what I mean? So if you're already up there, and a lot of these musicians, they're self-made, did it themselves, which I applaud them, because it's hard. And it's a really hard business to get into, and they've done a great job. But I think popularity is so key to having a successful music career.
Yeah.
That's why you see like on TikTok, one song blows up and then suddenly the rest of the guy's songs blow up. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you just need like one big song, right, that people really like or whatever, and then once you got that, then you're kind of set for the most part. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's a tough world out there for if you're trying to do this like professionally, at least. That's why I love that I'm kind of a no stress part
Situation.
of that. I just get to enjoy the creative part of it, and if I get to share it with people and they like it, that's awesome. But for the most part, it's just for me.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I do see people like it's like half the time is devoted to like music, half the time is devoted to
Mhm.
TikTok and like getting people to listen to your music in the first place. And yeah, it is a struggle. And I think that's something that can definitely be improved on.
Yeah, it's hard, man. Like even like some of my friends, like like I'll send a link or whatever, and like all they have to do is click it, and I guarantee you, like only half of them click it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know, it's tough because you think about it and you're like, oh, dude, it's like literally free content. It's like you just click the link, you just spend 3 minutes of your time. But
Yeah.
for a lot of people, that's like a big investment, and so it's hard. And one thing that I've always wondered is like why music seems to be so competitive. And because to me, the nature of the music industry should be not competitive, right? Like, but it becomes very competitive, like when you're like trying to be a part of it, because like like 3 minutes of your time, I guess there's an opportunity cost, like I guess, but like there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to listen to you, or I'm not like losing anything by listening to someone else's song and then also listening to mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like why can't we all just listen to the music that we're seeing, and whatever. It's not like there's no like I'm not paying to listen to that, right? Like it's like I can just listen to both and it should be fine. But it seems to be like, oh man, no, you have to listen to mine over this one. You know what I mean? Um, so I don't know. It's an interesting industry, and I'm sure there's a lot of like insight into that. I haven't really super thought about it, but it's definitely interesting. That seems to be kind of like a culture of competitiveness in the music industry.
Do you think there's like a cap on like, so let's say there's like average listener in America, right? Like, so let's say, do you think there's a cap on like how many listens Spotify has? So my question's more like, if like someone puts out a really good song, like do you think that takes away from like people potentially listening to like your music because like people only listen like X number of times? Like, does that make
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think. I mean, Spotify algorithm is hard, and it's complex and doesn't really help a lot of small artists, which is annoying. But obviously for good reason, because they're trying to maximize the amount of people coming onto the app.
yeah,
So it's like put the big songs on there and make those the ones that most people are listening to. Then those are the ones that you should play. Um, it makes sense, but it's definitely tough for like small artists because like they could release an amazing song, right? They could have an amazing song, but like Spotify just would never pick it up on the algorithm if like not enough people were playing it. And that's why like, there's a big culture of like pay to play. You know what I mean? Like there's people who have big playlists and you're like, all right, well, I guess I got to pay them $100 to put my
Yeah.
song on there for a month, and like, hopefully I can get enough streams that then organically it gets picked up somewhere. But like, it's very hard to do that, and it's like, and again, it creates like this pay gap, or like, or pay barrier, sorry,
Yeah.
for like being successful. And like, it's tough. Like the music industry is so expensive, and it's so funny because the majority of people are not going to make any money off of it. You know what I mean? They're just going to be operating at a loss. So I don't know, man. It's a interesting. I mean, definitely interesting topic, but not. I don't really see it getting better anytime soon.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah. I mean, one thing is, I don't know if you've heard of Audius. It's like this.
Yeah, I've heard of Audius.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Audius is sick. Yeah,
You put your music up there, or
I've put like 1 or 2 songs up there. I haven't put up everything.
yeah.
I
I
guess I
hope
should.
I hope it blows up because then it would really help artists. But
Yeah, I hope so too. It's a cool platform for
yeah.
sure. I like what they're doing.
Yeah. All right. My last question would be like, what is some advice you gave you would want to have given yourself like 2 years ago when you first started?
Yeah. Um. Uh. Don't be afraid of high end.
Of what?
Of high end, like high frequencies.
Oh, okay.
uh, like it took me like a year to like figure out that like most songs are pretty bright. Like most music nowadays is pretty bright, meaning that it has a lot of high frequency content.
Okay.
Um, and so don't be afraid to just bump that up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like all my old stuff sounded so muffled and muddy, and it took me like a year to figure that out. And it really is not that hard of a thing to figure out, but it took me a long time. So I think if I'd go back and say one thing to myself, I'd be like, don't be afraid of adding high end.
Yeah, that's pretty specific. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, at least, if, for someone starting out, I'd be like, understand what an EQ does and understand what a compressor does.
Gotcha.
Like, if you understand those two, you have like the fundamentals of getting music good down.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me specifically, I'd be like, don't be afraid of adding high end.
Damn. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I'm gonna stop recording, and if you want
Yeah.
to chat for a couple minutes, just like
Sure.